Hello students. Our today's topic of discussion is GST, which is an abbreviation of the word Goods and Services Tax. Now before we get to know about the meaning of GST and the method of calculation of GST, let us learn about some general things. For the smooth functioning of a country, government requires money. And one of the sources of collection of money is by collecting tax from the people of the country. There are different types of taxes which government collect from the people of country, and two main types of taxes are income tax and sales tax. What is income tax? On the basis of the yearly income of a person may have to pay tax to the government, which is known as income tax. Whereas, whenever a transaction takes place, the customer has to pay a certain tax to the seller, which eventually goes to the government. This was previously known as the sales tax. Now, over the years, different modifications have been done in the process of collection of sales tax, and what is collected in this format presently is known as Goods and Services Tax. Let us now come to different types of the Goods and Services Tax. The transaction may take place within the state, that is, both buying and selling may take within the state, or the transaction may take place outside the state, from one state to another state. On the basis of that, when transaction takes place within the state, the GST collected is divided in two categories, CGST and SGST, which has the same percentage rate, and CGST is known as Central GST, which goes to the center, and SGST, the state GST, comes to the state government. Whereas whenever transaction takes place outside the state, this is known as interstate GST, which is collected by the center, but a part of it comes to the state government. We will also have to know a few terms related to GST for the computation of GST. First of all, let's see what is input GST. What is input GST? Input GST is what seller pays to the person from whom he buys. Seller is generally not the manufacturer. So seller is also buying it from somebody. So when seller pays the GST to the person from whom he buys is known as input GST. What is output GST? This is what the customer pays it to the seller. When you are the customer, you are going to a shop, buying the things, you are paying the GST to the person who is selling it to you. This is what the seller is collecting from the customer is known as the output GST. Now the difference of these two is either the GST payable or the GST credit. If output GST is more than the input GST, then GST payable is output minus input. This goes to the government. Government gets this much amount. Whereas if input GST is more than the output, then GST remains as credit. Now we will understand all these things with the help of some examples. Let's see those examples now. Let us take an example to understand the theory which we just now learned. Suppose the transaction takes place within the state. So the GST charged will be divided in two categories, CGST and SGST, whose rates are given. Both CGST and SGST are equal to 9%. Now suppose the cost price of the seller is 5,000, which he has decided to sell to the customer at 6,000 rupees. So he must have paid the GST on rupees 5,000 from the person from whom he bought it. And he will collect the GST from the customer. Okay. So let's calculate how much did he pay, which is known as input GST. What he paid to the person from whom he bought it is known as input GST. So what is input CGST? Input CSG with GST will be 9% of 5,000, which is equal to 450. Input SGST will be on the same rate, 9% of 5,450. So total input GST will be summation of these two, 450 plus 450 is equal to 900. Now, so he has already paid how much? He has paid 900 rupees of GST when he bought it from the other person. Now, he will collect the GST from the customer. What he collects is known as output GST. Output CGST will be 9% of the selling price 6,540 rupees. Output SGST will be 9% of 6,000, which is also 540. So total output GST will be sum of these two, which is 1080. Now the difference of these two will go to the government, and since you can see the output GST is more than the input GST, so GST payable to the government is 1080 minus 980, which is equal to 180 rupees. Government gets this much of amount. Let us take an example now to understand the concept of IGST. Suppose the buying and selling both take place outside the state, then the GST charged will be known as IGST or interstate GST. Take this example. Suppose the CP is 10,000, cost price of the seller, and the seller decides to sell it to the customer at 12,000 rupees, and it is known that CGST is 9%. As you know, CGST and SGST rates are same, so CGST and SGST both will be equal to 9%. Then IGST, the interstate GST, is equal to 9 plus 9 is equal to 18%, sum of the CGST and IGST rates. So what will be the input GST? Input IGST will be 18% of CP 10,000, which is equal to 1800 rupees. Output IGST will be 18% of 12,000, which is equal to 2160. And the GST payable is the difference of these two, 2160 minus 1800, which is equal to 360 rupees. So these are the basic understandings on the computation of GST. Now you have to do more problems to understand and master this topic.